We did it. We're live. It wasn't a perfect live move, but it did work. I got the notification on Instagram. So sorry, you guys were having a wonderful conversation and I accidentally started the stream while you were doing that. So if you'd like to continue, please do.
I was like, oh, I thought we were joking. Stu didn't take my joke well.
Oh man, the first comment in the chat. Oh brother, what a stinker. It's gonna be a night, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, that's a polite way to put it. I think stronger words could be used, but yeah, it was entertaining, if nothing else. Great game for neutrals.
Great game for neutrals. I guess that's true. You know, for a while it was about, I don't know, it was going to be a terrible game for neutrals. If I turn on a game that is like 3-0 in the whatever minute, 20th minute or so, I'm like, I'll just turn it off. Which I guess,
yeah, I mean,
it really depends on the vibe. Because sometimes I do want to watch just like see a bloodbath.
That's true.
Yeah, but so many times it's, you know, you're up 3, you're just going to sit back and yeah.
You gotta feel it out. Yeah.
But guys do start just like shooting every opportunity they get. that part can be fun.
I mean, Angulo did really try to score on his own. Really missed the chance for a 4th goal for Orlando City because he didn't pass it. But got a 4th anyway, so okay.
Yeah, exactly. Justin, can you say that one more time? What I'm sure it'll come up in the show actually, but what were you talking about? It was like Houston, their passing network, and they could not rush through.
If you look at the like final third entries of Houston versus Minnesota, it's like all just a giant like ring around the box. They just could not like get into the box at all.
Wild.
It's very like from a like I like to see a good solid back line like not give anything. It was very satisfying to see.
Yeah, that's kind of how I think of Minnesota, as being that team in a good way.
And like I don't think Houston have a lot of like creativity right now.
Yeah.
When they get into the final third.
Also true. Shilly was saying on the ride home, we were listening to Shilly talk on Y98, and he was saying it was, we'll probably mention this, but McGlynn, like without McGlynn, they kind of seem kind of hopeless. Obviously no Ache, so maybe that's it too.
Yeah, and they've been bailed out a couple times by McGlynn, just like taking a rocket from like, cutting inside and letting loose.
Now all of America is going to know that feeling, right?
Yes.
Worthless games bailed out by McGlynn. Banger. I like it. All right, guys. Well, we'll get started. Thank you for joining us in the chat. I'm running the show, so we'll see how well we go. Justin, Stu, if you see a good comment, please do call it out. I'm not as good at it when I have to do all the work here. But here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. It is a show without Matt Baker, but thank goodness Matt Baker has given us the notes. He's done all this work for us, like ultra stats department / producer mode, and we're going to do our best to prepare you for Saturday in the game against Houston away. But first, we're going to talk about the game that happened. It's going to be a rough one, and luckily I have a support system here to help me do it. Stu Holkgren is here to join us, as well as Justin Horniker, our special guest tonight. Justin, let's start with you, man. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, happy to be on. Matt told me last night to bring my hot takes, so happy to be here. Hope I can fill in.
Love it. Yeah. So yeah, Justin, what have you, we got to check in with you and your work lately. You're still working for STL Mag. You still got your what's it called, that app? Where do you post most of your stories?
Yeah, I can go. I can give you my plugs.
I'm doing a terrible job.
I do a weekly St. Louis newsletter through St. Louis Magazine. Like this week, we talked about the mural that went up at Anthonino's commemorating the 1950 team. So that was very fun to dive into. So we do like stories like that every week, and then I do my general soccer reporting on Talkin' Soccer, which is my Substack.
Thank you.
Yes.
So national team, women's game, men's game.
Yeah, I was at the
local.
Casey Current game on Friday. I do a lot of NWSL coverage as well as just my MLS St. Louis stuff. A little bit of everything. I dabble.
Wanted to make sure we'll remind everyone at the end again, but I wanted to make sure the KTRS listeners get to know you a little bit better and check you out because it is good stuff, guys. You have to do that. Stu, how's it going, man? What's new with you tonight?
Not too much. I just checked in on the MWPL Midwest Premier League score, and ATAR is beating Club Atletico St. Louis. For those of you who follow that league, that is my soccer of the night, and not Al Hilal versus Pachuca, which actually I think that's 1-1 in Club World Cup right now. But game doesn't.
A lot of weird draws lately because I think Salzburg is also drawing right now. Last I heard, as I was walking up, my son said they were hanging in there. Oh, it's 1-0, but Salzburg's only down 1 goal to Real Madrid. That's not bad for sure. So Club World Cup's been fun to watch. But that matchup that you mentioned, Stu, how do you choose a favorite in that one? Do you just kind of enjoy that two amazing St. Louis teams are facing each other?
Yeah, I just kind of enjoy it. For those who don't know, there's 4 St. Louis clubs in this league that are local, and they're fun to watch. They're all around the area. Club Atletico plays at De Smet. ATAR plays at Althoff High School in Belleville. Both play at St. Mary's in South City, which is right by my house. And St. Louis Developmental Academy plays at Creve Coeur. So they're just fun to watch. So on a weekend where we don't have, a local game, I know there's some of those going around. So it's always a place to watch some local soccer here in St. Louis.
Club Atletico they just lost their first game the other day. They were on a roll, and one of those games they had, I think they won because of like a midfield banger. That was an incredible goal that they had. Great staff, a great club, all around, all 4 of those. So definitely recommend you guys check that out. But the ones we're going to talk about today, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be up and down, I guess is a better way to say it. But we're going to talk about this. What was it? 4-2 win or loss to Orlando City last night. We're recording on a Thursday night. So let's talk about it. We're going to start with the starting 11 and get a feel for that and just move on from there. Starting 11 was for St. Louis, Berkey in goal, Reed at left back, Baumgartel and Hebert, center backs, Totland at right back. Hartle and Watts were the dual pivots. Pompeu across was the left wing, Toyshirt as the 10. I think it's safe to say Betcher, the right wing, Klaus playing as the striker. Justin, what were your thoughts when you saw this lineup? What kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a way to get the best 11 currently, especially like in the attack for sure, on the pitch in the lineup. And I think like a bit maybe not as pragmatic as it needed to be with just having like Marcel Hartel in the double pivot, for instance. But like from an attacking standpoint, as a team that has had a lot of flack for not being like coming out in the front foot at times this year, I thought that part of it was encouraging for sure.
I agree. I think every time Critchley does something that I don't really see anything and think, oh no, not that. Whereas I did feel that way about Olaf, but I did have my fears with this one, Stu. Maybe you'll kind of talk about those fears, even not knowing, what happened in this game. When you saw this lineup, what did you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I chuckled a little bit when Justin said come out on our front foot because, that was our lineup that we gave, but I don't think we could have had a more disastrous first 10 minutes. Yeah. No, I mean, I had the same reaction as Justin when I saw it. We're trying to fit the best 11 in no matter where. And, it would try something new. I mean, try it and see if it works. And I think with Critch, to be honest, why not at this point? But maybe that's just because my expectations for the season are very low for the rest of the year.
Yeah, fair. I think that's going to be a theme, Stu. I know you've mentioned it several times in the last month, more and more so each week it feels like. But I would just say I think you guys are kind of leaning into it. I'll just say it hotly and plainly that putting Hartle in the dual pivot is a choice that you always worry about. Critchley's not the first to do it. when Hartle was brought in. We knew he could play the 8 or 6 nominally. And so I think that was a worry just immediately. He's not as effective in the attack, I don't feel like, when that happens. And then there's always weirdness in defense. Not bad always. I don't know if we can blame Hartle for any weirdness in defense, but it's definitely not just like stout and perfect. Like we were talking about perhaps Minnesota in the pregame chat here, pre-show chat. So good thoughts there. Matt has in the notes here that it was Berkey's 500th career appearance for a club team. So massive for him. He's had an incredible career, still pumping. I think that's going to be much, much higher by the time he retires, if he should choose to stay at it. The first time we've had all of Klaus, Betcher, Teuscher, Hartle in the starting 11. And it's the first time that Seal has joined them in the attack as well with that starting 11. So just interesting notes there from Matt. Again, I agree with you guys that this is just like the way to try to get the best players on the field. Assuming Vollum is hurt. Is that okay to say, guys? Are we okay to say maybe we would have put Vollum in the starting 11?
Yeah, if he's like 90 minutes fit. Yeah, for sure. I wonder, my brain like goes to that lineup works if you have like someone who is like at the 6 that can just like hoover up everything and cover a lot of ground. And I think that's where that lineup maybe goes wrong. And so I'm trying to think of like where you would slot in Vollum. Like
exactly.
Thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And who would come out based on who's best in what places. Exactly. Yeah. That's the trouble, right? We won't go in too in depth with that, though. I am tempted to do so. But I think it's safe to say, like, when the game first kicked off, it was ugly from the start. And by that, I mean, Orlando City looked like world beaters. They were creating chance after chance after chance, just disorganizing the heck out of St. Louis's defense from the go. And so let's talk about some of those things quickly. I'll list a few of these plays, and then we'll just kind of give some thoughts on that point in the game. In the 7th minute, first Orlando goal happened. And again, this was like the 4th or 5th chance they had already in the 7th minute, in my opinion. Drew St. Louis into their defensive half in mid-third, then stretched long with a pass, wide left, and stretched St. Louis's defense well enough to find space for a great shot in behind Hebert. And then in the 9th minute, the second goal, this was just beautiful play. Isn't this the one where it was just a wide open far post pass? So that was just wonderful play. But, maybe too easy. 22nd, the third goal, it was the worst giveaway. The conceded one was the Baumgartel and Watts situation in the back. I think I mentioned watching St. Louis and USMNT lately has been really difficult. I think this was after that second friendly with the USA, because this kind of stuff has been happening. It's just been bad after bad after bad. So, Justin, let's start with you. At this point, it's all bad, right? What were you thinking when this started happening? Did you think the game was over and St. Louis was going to be out? 3 goals in 22 minutes is pretty bad.
Yeah. And I think it was also like, it wasn't just individual mistakes, but it was also just that like formationally everything was so expansive that Orlando was just like taking that space, running into it. And then you saw with the second goal, it was just like the space wasn't closed down, and it gave him enough time to just like pick his head up and pick out a shot. And like for Orlando to just, every time they had a counter, they were just into the final third. And yeah, it didn't seem like it was going to be a good night at that point. Obviously things slightly changed at the hydration break into the end of the half. But yeah, at that moment, it seemed like things had just gone haywire.
Anything, Stuart, that you saw in that opening salvo, like what, any thoughts you had even before St. Louis started coming back?
I just thought, how bad is it actually going to get? Because they could have scored a couple more times before that hydration break.
Yeah.
So it was just ugly. I mean, it was obviously they were attacking that left side or right side of Thailand, and they were finding space, and they were just shooting at will, setting up, and it's amazing that we even clawed back into that game, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Matt mentioned the opening salvo was the worst 9 minutes and arguably worst portion of a half in our history. I think that's possibly true. I would say the Club America game felt about that bad. But I guess up until the St. Louis goal, it was the worst I think St. Louis has looked in general. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. There are a couple Carnell games that I felt pretty hapless, and then a lot of Olaf. It's like a different kind of bad, right? When you just know you're not going to score, it feels different than giving up 3 goals at that point. Yeah. So anyway, that's just something Matt wanted to add. But then things do get better. Thank goodness. And this, to me, I got to be the positive guy here, right? Matt's not here. To me, I was like, okay, this is still like a St. Louis team that has fight. This is still a St. Louis team that's set up properly, functionally, right? So in the 40th minute, we get a St. Louis goal from Simon Betcher. Thomas Totland, who got both assists in this game, which I think he had a really incredible game. Good hold up from Betcher. He kind of did all the work once he got the ball. But we've seen him do this a lot, just not get that final payoff. He's done this a million times this season. And so it was really good to see him get that payoff. And honestly, it was really nice that it happened in this game, even though a loss is what came out of it. So that was nice to see from, in my opinion, 45+3. Great to see, again, fight. This is after the half could have been over. Another pass from Totland, kind of skimmed through the defenders, landed at Klaus's feet, and he made no mistakes on this one. Just buried it. So feeling better at this point, Stu, right? Did this feel kind of like vintage St. Louis? Like they have the fight, they can come back? Feels like there's life here?
It felt more like hackball from last year to me, honestly, because I thought there was a chance coming back. I was entertained. At this point, obviously, we scored twice. We were showing a lot of threat. I didn't think we were going to tie it because of how porous our backline had been up to that point. But it was entertaining, and I thought we were going to actually get a third and then maybe lose 4-3 was my gut at the end of the first half.
Yeah, well, let's hear it from you, Justin. What did you see in this? Did you see like changes or improvements, or what did you like from those goals that we got?
Yeah, I think I kind of noted coming out of that hydration break that there was like a definite frustration, but like a confident frustration of like they knew that they got themselves into that mess. And I think from that moment, you saw a little bit of those like positional changes and a little bit of tweaking going on heading into that. And then, yeah, just those goals from Betcher and Klaus, it was just, and Klaus' goal especially, are just forwards being in the right position and finally, like you mentioned, Phil, just like finally getting that goal off. Because I think, like I've been talking about it a lot through the first half of the season of just, if now they didn't create nearly enough, but they were still greatly underachieving in what they did create. So the fact that they're like actually getting some of those bounces back, I think is a good sign and a good sign for their confidence. Klaus has 5 goals in 4 games now. So like that's something you want to see. And like from a mentality standpoint, yeah, like everyone has sat through the first half of the season and like has seen a team that like if the early Olaf Melberg St. Louis City went down 3-0, like would there be a fight back? Probably not, because I think a lot of times the second they conceded a goal, it was over. So seeing them not just get the first goal, but get the second goal and then like charging into stoppage time, it seemed like Orlando and St. Louis both could have scored another goal in the half. So definitely entertaining and fight, even though it wasn't pretty, even though it's not great, it was better than what they've had this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like kind of what, just to add to what you just said there, these goals aren't like, this is massively repeatable. We do this, 4 times, 5 times in a half, we're going to get 2 goals every time. They weren't like bang on, these are going to be goals every time, but it was encouraging. You were mind melding a little bit with Matt because he said the same thing. Like Klaus and Betcher were finishing, right? And that's something that St. Louis has been extremely bad at. And we're going to touch on that a little later. And, he mentioned the water break speech. It would be nice to kind of hear. I'm curious, fly on the wall, what we could have heard from that. I want to know, has Critchley cussed in front of you guys? Have you heard him cuss yet? I feel like he'd be a good cusser.
Yeah, I would love to know. They're like very coy about what they actually say in those meetings.
Yes.
But yeah.
Absolutely. And the best thing here, this is good. This is vintage Matt Baker stat right here. 5 shots between the 40th minute and 45+3 that led to 2 goals. That stat sounds kind of repeatable, even though I just said, those goals weren't something that's going to happen every single time in every single game. That stat sounds like something normal for a good, decent team. That's the kind of stat you want to see. 5 chances and 2 of them go in. That's great. So I'd love to see more of that in the future. We'll take a little bit of a break here to say we are Flyover Footy on the big 550 KTRS. Thank you so much as we continue to break down just a little bit this game, the loss, the 4-2 loss against Orlando City. Normally, this isn't how things go. Normally on this podcast, you'll see a game on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday, you'll have Matt Baker and Santiago Beltran like breaking it down in depth, right? And you get a lot out of that. We're doing a little bit of that, and then we're going to prepare you for Houston in this episode. So we will continue with the second half, get it out of the way pretty quickly here, and then start prepping you for the Houston game. The second half thoughts. Now, this is the big one, right? I think this is worth some conversation here. Morales on for Watts. And I want to bring into this conversation, Stu. I'm going to cue you up here because we've been talking about this in our DMs a lot. You know, if not Watts, if not Morales, you know, maybe it could be JGR. And we've been talking a lot about U22 players. And so Watts had a terrible first half. And so at the half, we're like talking to each other. Surely Watts has to come off. It's just like it needs to happen. He's had an extremely bad game. I don't want to ride him, but I think everyone agrees that he had one of the worst games of his career in St. Louis City. And he came off. Could have been Morales. Could have been JGR. It was Morales. So, Stu, any thoughts on that? You can feel free to talk a little bit about Watts as well if you'd like.
Yeah, if I'm going 45 minutes in the heat, I'll go with Morales. I don't think I would be confident with him and his legs going full 90 in that weather. Fair. But he was the one that I imagined we'd bring on when Watts would come off, and I think everyone was calling for Watts to come off at half. He was not great, but you know, everyone has good games and bad games, and hopefully Watts will, you know, bounce back quickly, and this Saturday he'll take out his frustration on Houston in a productive way. So yeah, I mean, JGR, he's international man of mystery. It seems like our U22 who we've underutilized. So with the season kind of maybe having the playoffs out of reach, seeing more of JGR and showcasing him a little bit potentially could be something I would like to see more. I don't know if Morales has a long-term future in St. Louis City just due to being in his mid-30s. And, you know, as a guy in my mid-30s, I'm well aware that basically every soccer player out there is retiring at my age. So
so tired, Stu.
So tired. But point being, we invested a lot into JGR. It's time to see if Critch can unlock what he has, or if we're going to look to move on from him in the offseason.
I enjoyed Critchley's comments about them being brave, and it's something that Watts has needed to be more brave. And this happened, and Critch played that down as a coach should. But I also agree with it. I want to also say Watts had one of the best games of his career with St. Louis City a few games ago when he scored that goal. I thought he had a great entire game. So just wanted to say that. But Justin, any thoughts on that as well? Anything you want to add to that? Because we also want to talk about Wenzel here in a sec.
Yeah, no, I think that it made sense in a game that you want to like kind of control a little bit more. Like, I think everyone knows what Alfredo Morales is at this point. Like, he's not sneaking up on anyone as someone who's been a veteran for this long, but I think he does raise the floor. And as a veteran, he gives you like some calmness back there that they definitely needed in this game. So yeah, that made a lot of sense to me. And then I liked it better when later in the game, Toycher comes off and Hartl moves up into the formation a little bit more. And I think that's when things started to click more in the second half for sure.
Yes, completely agree. And, you know, I had trouble with Morales at one of these games. And maybe it was a game when he played a lot of minutes and he just was too tired. But, you know, I think we saw why a calm Morales is in and what he brings, even though it may not be, you know, breaking, you know, busting everybody up as the 6. That's not his thing, but he is a creative, calming presence. And I think that was really good for a team that needed to do both of those things, like calm down, but also have some creativity. So it was the perfect sub, to be honest. I think that was exactly what needed to happen. Things looked better, but, you know, nothing was amazing at this point. Baumgartel also, this is the scariest thing, I think, in the game. And it's an interesting twist to it as well. Baumgartel went down in the 58th minute. It looked very bad. It looked like Timo wanted to go on multiple times. There were men pulling him back off of the field from my view. So, I love to see that in one of our players. But he went down bad, and I think he's probably hurt. I'm really interested to see whether he's available for this weekend because he kept playing. But the other twist is that Wenzel is the one that came on for him, not Yarrow, right? So, Justin, what were your thoughts on that? Did you expect that?
Yeah. Before I forget, on the Baumgartel, he was at training today, not on the field, in the weight room. They said he was going to be evaluated this afternoon, so that would have happened. So I guess we'll know by tomorrow's injury report, availability report, if he's good to go or not. They Critchley didn't seem too optimistic about it, but I think it's in the hands of the training staff at this point. But yeah, I thought going with Wenzel was interesting. Obviously, Critchley has experience with him from times with City 2 and just being around the organization. So, like, knows what Wenzel is going to give him. He said today, I forget if it was days are melding together, but either in today's press conference or last night, he talked about Wenzel and said that he wanted to reward him for just having a good week in training and just giving it all in training. And I think that is interesting too, on a guy who, like, they see as putting in the work and doing things right in training to be moving up the depth chart in that way. If Baumgartel is then not ready to go and you're looking at a CB pair of Kyle Hiebert and Michael Wenzel, that is definitely slightly concerning. But yeah, I think Wenzel has impressed people. And I think anyone you talk to will, in the organization, talks about just like how hardworking he is and like is trying to better his game and get to that point where he can be a consistent starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stu, was that you about? Go ahead.
Yeah, he gotta love how he came on with fire in that match toward the end. He had a fantastic tactical foul to pants the Orlando player, pulled down his pants and received the yellow. Actually, Michael from Chat City Tactics, I think, said that it was the first time we've actually had a successful tactical foul.
That stuck out to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. That would have resulted in a one-on-one with the keeper. If you remember way back in the U.S. Open Cup, I'm not sure if it was Yarrow, absolutely whiffed on taking down Marcanic, and that led to their winner, unfortunately.
And Stu, the Bouanga goal in LA also was another instance where somebody could have taken him on.
Yeah. So
and Hiebert was on 1-2 in this game. Wild.
Hiebert whiffed on the I think it was kind of an elbow. Elbow is too hard to say. He was putting his arm out to, I think, shove down the player, not an actual elbow, but he couldn't make contact with the shoulder to take down the player. And so Wenzel making waves. He's already ahead of a couple other City players on that aspect. So props to him.
Absolutely. Let's finish this up and we'll talk a little bit more before we move on to Houston. Let's talk about the goal and the subs, because I think those are the most important things that we should mention before we go. 82nd minute, that was the fourth Orlando goal. Pasalic with his brace, 2 braces. Enrique had 2. Pasalic had 2. And he just kind of cut and split 2 defenders, got a shot off, and it went in. I think Berkey thought that ball was going to be blocked because it doesn't matter. He got through. He made a good play. Berkey was angry that it got through those 2 players in an area that he didn't expect to have to go. I think most of that was just like frustration that he let 4 in. He's a competitor, so it is what it is. We have to mention that Berkey had an incredible game. He showed why he's paid so much. It's unfortunate that we couldn't reward him. But man, did he have an amazing game. That game should have probably been 6 or more to 2 based on those breakaways that he was able to save. So that was massive. So lastly, I'll give you guys one more comment here after I mention this. The subs that came on were Zielinski for Totland, Volum for Toyshirt. Hartl moved up at that point, as you mentioned, Justin, which I thought was much better, having Hartl at the 10. Agreeing with you on that. McSorley for Betcher later on. And that is McSorley's final call-up for short-term loans. And there's no other tournaments, I guess. So he would have to get signed if he was going to appear again. Stu, let's start with you. Justin, I'm going to let you wrap up whatever you'd like to say for as long as you'd like to say about this game. Stu, especially talking about McSorley, I love when these kids come on because they bring so much energy. It is one of my favorite things when we see someone come from City 2 or the Academy and do exactly what he did. Now, he didn't wasn't a game breaker, but it was just really good to see that energy on the field brought by a kid, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, again, in the season, looking forward, are we playing guys with more upside, more growth opportunities, and McSorley, a guy like him, or see Tyson Pierce play, or, is Caden Glover alive? More from him. I know he just scored for City 2 last week, so he is around, but some of these young guys like to see more, maybe Gabriel McKenna from City 2, or Lorenzo Cornelius, or just go crazy and call up one of the U14s that went to the boys national team. So no, not quite that, but yeah, no, I love it when they come on, they play with fire. Wenzel coming on was great. McSorley coming on was great. It was already an entertaining game. So hopefully these are some of the positives to look forward to and take away.
Absolutely. Justin, final thought on this game.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, I think it tells you how, and the players and Critchley all kind of have talked about this, and just how much of a work in progress this all is still, of trying to turn things around from where they were. Yes, they cannot really afford to take their time, and they can't really afford to drop games like this and have performances like this where they come out so flat and so spacious. Expansive was the word that was used. Yeah. But I think their ability to adjust was something, if you wanted to take a positive out of it, that you can. Now, heading into Houston, a team that plays sort of similar, maybe in less effective than Orlando, if they can take lessons from this game, apply them to Houston, then I think that's maybe a different story. But coming from this, obviously, lessons to be learned, and you can never start like that. It's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. I'll just add that, Critchley, everyone is mentioning the words expansive, too much space. And it sounded like Critchley was in the post game mentioning how it needed to be stronger, more aggressive against the ball in the press, it sounds like. And then once that doesn't work out, we need to be compact. And then he also kind of in another statement said, or maybe later in that statement mentioned that maybe guys were getting caught up in the game plan. And maybe that was kind of messing with the original principle, or maybe they were getting caught up on the game plan and forgetting the original principles. I'm not sure where he was going with that, but just something to watch. Maybe this is lessons learned. Maybe this is, again, we can apply these lessons and adjustments. I loved that positivity about the adjustment, Justin. That's really awesome. But lastly, nope, it's not. Oh, it reminds me again, Hack. It's the same thing as when Hackworth came in. All of a sudden we could attack and the defense just was really awful. So I'm just thinking, I think we should all be thinking, why is that? What is it about St. Louis City? What is it about this roster? What is it about this system and all of these things working together that make us naturally have these problems if we don't just bunker in and play Olaf?
Yeah, it's if you want to push forward, if you want to be on the front foot, if you want to attack in the way that you want to, you then have to be able to have those compact lines against the ball. And I think that's what you saw in the success in that first game against San Jose. That was a lot of there was a lot of compact units defending that San Jose had trouble breaking down. I think you saw that in the Portland game too. Obviously not as much against the Galaxy and not as much last night, but that I think seems to be the way that this formula works, is that you have to be able to recover and you have to be able to fall back into that line once they break that first press. Because that's when Orlando broke that initial press, they were just into the final third every single time.
Yep. And it made me wonder if against LA Galaxy, if Durkin was in, if he could have made that difference, just stopping the transition moments, even with Orlando. And again, if we're going to play Hartle as a dual pivot, maybe someone like JGR next to him who can just break things up and sit in front of the back line. Maybe that's a good idea instead of someone like Watts who's not quite made to do that. So good stuff, guys. Thank you for helping me break down the Orlando City loss. Now we're going to look on to hopefully happier things in the game against Houston Dynamo in Houston on Saturday. We are Flyover Footy. You're listening on the Big 550 KTRS. All right, the history between these two teams. We're going to break into the Matt Baker general information and then try to get a little bit more exact as we move on here in the only 10 minutes that we have left. History between these two teams. St. Louis is 3-2-1, one loss in all competitions. That was the CONCACAF Champions Cup that just hurt my heart. That was the loss that I didn't want to give against Houston, but that's the one that happened. Last time we played Houston, it was 3-0 win for St. Louis. And it's the only match we played between these sides with a majority of our current team. Betcher had a brace in that game. I had forgotten that. All right, bird's eye view of Houston standings. They're 11th in the West with a 5-9-5 record on 20 points in 19 matches. 24 goals forced, 31 goals allowed, -7 goal differential, 3-6-1 at home. We're going to see later that they actually aren't amazing at home compared to other teams. Last 3 matches was a 3-1 loss to Minnesota, 3-1 loss to Montreal, 3-1 loss to SKC. Okay, so what we're saying is we have a chance, perhaps, if you're just looking from a bird's eye view. They have the most home losses in the Western Conference. That's what I was kind of alluding to. 9 goals allowed in their last 3 games. At home, they've conceded 19 goals out of 31 total and scored just 13 out of 24 total. So they can be gotten. Their health and player availability. Jack McGlynn out. We were talking about how he could be a very important tool. Dale Schilly was saying that on the radio last night, that without him, they look a little bit lost. Nelson Quinones, he has a knee injury. Andrew Tarbell is also out. Biggest Houston storyline. They've lost 3 in a row and are still without Jack McGlynn, as we were saying, pardon me. They've been very poor against teams lower them in the table versus teams. I think that was lower than them in the Shield standing. So they're 0-3-1 against those teams, and STL's lower than them in the table. So again, we're saying perhaps there is a chance. Anything you want to add to that, Justin?
No, I would just say that, for all the reasons that you pointed out, Phil, if you view yourself as a team that can, even with all of the injuries that we've talked about, toward out of the ability to talk about it, even with everything that is going against St. Louis, if you see yourself as a team that can make a late season push, you have to win this game against a team that is very beatable right now.
Yes, and we haven't played them
right. Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree. And we're going to talk about, we'll give you a chance to talk about that in a little bit here in a second here. But yeah, we haven't played Houston. So this could be a 6-point situation, right? Beat them twice. They're above us in the standings. This is how you get to the playoffs is beating teams like this. There's an opportunity here. All right. From St. Louis, 14th in the West, 3-10-6 record on 15 points. They're 1-2-1 under David Critchley. That's not. We're going to talk about that too. Hopefully, before this is over, Stu. We're looking at you with what our chances are to the playoffs. Obviously, the 4-2 loss we've talked about, 3-3 draw to LA Galaxy, and then the 2-1 loss at Portland. So, but there was that win at San Jose at home, so that was nice. 4 of our 7 highest XG matches have been under Critchley. We've scored 8 goals in Critchley's 4 games. Had scored 11 in our 15 prior. So that's great. But the defense has been a problem. 3 of our 6 highest XG have come in Critchley's time, giving up the most XG, I think is what he means by that. Health and player availability out is Leuven, Kessler, Alm, Nilsson, Ostrak, Durkin, and as Justin mentioned, Baumgartel is going to be evaluated tonight, or has been already, as we speak on a Thursday night. Critchley said that looks like it'll be another week on Durkin. Originally, he was saying maybe Saturday for Durkin, but it looks like that's not happening now. Okay, so Stu, let's talk about this. This is a must-win game, right? I know we keep saying that, and I think for a team at this place in the standings, they all are must-win games, and it gets more so that way the more we lose. So, Stu, you've been keeping track of points per game and our chances to make that 9th place to get into the playoffs, possibly the play-in game. So what are your thoughts on that? Enlighten us.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Chris Durkin and his wife for the birth of their first kid, Rona Durkin. I think yesterday, 2 days ago. Anyways, so yes, as far as the more depressing statistics go, our PPG is not good, to put it bluntly. So our points per game, obviously, we're 15 points in 19 matches. We're currently on a pace for 27 points this season, which is you're looking into generally on the edge of wooden spoon territory if you're getting that amount of points. It's a bit outside of the orbit of that, but that's never a conversation you want to be in at all. And we are in that conversation. So technically, if we stayed to our points per game for the rest of the season, we would max out at 27. And currently, Colorado Rapids are in the ninth spot in the West with 25 points. So you could look at it as we would be sort of eliminated, not mathematically, but if Colorado were to win, then with our current points per game, we would be out. We'll have to do the math to see which match exactly we're trending towards, because we still technically could get, we have, up to 60 points we could get if we win out and get 3 points in every match from here on out. But every game that'll, tick down as teams win and we lose or draw. So we'll keep our eye on that in sort of a morbid fashion. And we were trying to do some back of the napkin math in Flyover Footy chat this morning to see when that elimination might actually fall. And I think once we determine something a little clearer, get that out.
Yes, absolutely. I think we will put out actual good math, but I think you broke it down very nicely there, Stu, with the chances and the points per game. So that points per game just needs to go up. I think that's a good way to shorten it. Let's talk about Houston's characteristics. And Justin, I want to give you a good chance to respond to this. These just generally break down their trends and what teams are good at and bad at. Houston's strengths are that they're good at attacking set pieces and they're good at creating long shot opportunities. They're bad at defending counterattacks, bad at defending set pieces, bad at avoiding fouling in dangerous areas. St. Louis strengths, shooting from direct free kicks. I can't help but feel like that is all Leuven, and Leuven's not playing this game. Take that for what you will. Bad at finishing scoring chances, defending set pieces, defending against long shots, protecting the lead, defending against skillful players. Justin, I'll let you fill in some more of the blanks. You've got this chart in front of you. So, obviously I think with Houston, they tend to want the ball. They want to disorganize the opponent with the ball. You mentioned them having, the ball around the box and just passing it around and around outside of Minnesota and not breaking in. So what do you think you're going to see from Houston and maybe what we hope to see from St. Louis?
Yeah, that kind of tracks with just how they've played a lot this season. So yeah, there's a nice little horseshoe of inability to get into the box against Minnesota. Now, of course, that's Minnesota's defense compared to St. Louis's, but
exactly.
Like a lot of Houston's good goal scoring opportunities this year have come from building it up, and especially when Jack McGlynn has been in the lineup, getting it to McGlynn, he cuts in from the right to that like edge of the box, corner of the box. They're either hoping that somebody comes out, that they draw multiple defenders out to McGlynn so he can send it across to the back post, or that no one covers him and he can take a shot from there, or whoever the carrier is cutting it in. And that's kind of almost like what they're trying to do. Obviously, it is more of a slower paced. They want to, like you said, disorganize, but they're not going to run down your throat or anything. If you look at their like average line of engagement, usually they do sit back a little bit, and it's a nice little styles clash, much like the Orlando St. Louis matchup was a styles clash. But I think even more because Orlando still brings an intensity off the ball that even though they're not pressing, they're clogging the passing lanes and they're looking to jump immediately. Houston aren't necessarily going to be that aggressive and that willing to jump, especially in Houston in the summer. So it is a chance to, if you can really get on them early, not allow them that comfort as they build up. And yeah, without Jack McGlynn too, that takes away a major weapon that they've been able to use for some success this year. And outside of that, there hasn't been a ton going for him.
Yeah, I think that breaks it down perfectly. I completely agree. Lastly, their key players to watch out for: Ezequiel Ponce, Argentinian forward, 4 goals, 1 assist, leads the team in scoring. Andre Linger, a Czech winger, 3 goals, 1 assist. Griffin Dorsey is a fun right back. I like to give him trouble because he's always right in front of us when we're watching him in St. Louis. Good right back, midfielder, looking to break into the national team for the U.S. So I like to watch him. He works really hard and has some talent. Nico Lodeiro, Artur, Junior Urso, Amine Bassi, Franco Escobar. So we've seen these players. Again, I think the style clash works better for some reason, City against Houston over historically. So I think there's a chance here. We've talked about all the chances and possibilities for St. Louis having a good game, even though the points aren't looking good so far to get in the playoffs. Could be a nice way to turn it around and maybe start something special. Let's go into our lineups, guys. This is always my favorite part, and I usually let Matt kind of set the standard, but I've done a bit of a vanilla lineup here to kind of get us started, and hopefully you guys are going to get a little more interesting. Let's work it out here. Berkey in the back, Totland, Baumgartel, if he's available. Obviously, I think Wenzel will come in if he's not, and I've enjoyed his play so far, even though it was very small amounts. Hebert, Reed at left back, Morales, and Vollum is where I'm going to take a step forward. I'd like to see Vollum start, and I want to keep Hartl forward. Celio, Hartl, and Betcher. Betcher said he likes playing right mid, and I'm glad he likes it because I do think he's good at it, especially the way he's been set up to succeed with his style of play. Klaus up top, of course. So just I want to end with you. Stu, what do you think the lineup might be, or what would you like to see?
Well, I am not confident that Timo Baumgartel will be fit to play on Saturday. And to be honest, I don't want him to risk it at this point. The last thing we need is another set of recurring injuries for our center backs. We've unfortunately seen that with Nielsen this season, last season, and the season before. But Berkey, Totland, Hebert, Wenzel, Reed, Wallum, Morales, Betcher, Hartl, Celio, and Klaus for me.
Okay, I like it. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I do agree that I would rather not risk Baumgartel, especially if none of the other injuries, like Durkin, if Durkin comes back, maybe he can slot in at center back again. But yeah, they're starting to get a little thin at the position for the rest of the season. So I think I'd like to see Wenzel. It seems like he's earned that opportunity. So I guess your center back pairs then Wenzel and Hebert, Totland, of course. I do think there will be some rotation, so I'm trying not to overthink this. Like maybe see Joey Zielinski out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm going to stay with the same back four, but put it down that I was waffling on Joey Zielinski. And then Conrad Wallum in the midfield. I think Alfredo Morales as well, and then push Hartl up with Pompeo and Klaus and Betcher at the front three.
Yeah, my favorite part of your lineup is that Vollum and JGR at the dual pivots, and putting in Zielinski, like maybe we put in guys that are hardworking guys that aren't the high, intense quality, and then we sub in at the end and really make a push. Hopefully after we've held the line or scored a goal. I could see it, and I would love to see it as well if you want to rotate guys and make sure there's no injuries, right? That's a good thing for St. Louis here. So good one there. Score predictions, I'll lead with mine. I'll say 3-2 because I used to say 2-1, but with this team, it's got to be like 3-2 or something like that if it's going to be close. So that's what I think. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I was actually going to say 3-2 also.
Okay.
I just think that things are just too chaotic right now for it to not be like a 1-goal scoreline. And yeah, like I said, I think I don't think both defenses are very good. So
fair. Stu, what do you think?
I'm going to be the pessimist here, and I unfortunately think that we'll come on the short end of the stick, but I think we'll be 2-1 Houston.
Okay. Well, that's it from us, guys. I hope you feel somewhat prepared for Houston. I hope, we weren't very negative. It felt like I wanted to be more negative in this one. So I'm sorry if we didn't give you guys an outlet for your anger and frustration. But hopefully you got some of that. Maybe you can even see some silver lining after today's show as well.
Yeah,
Justin,
so I
let's
think it
check in.
just,
Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, like, my lack of negativity, I think, is just because of, like, I've been down and out for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
So just to have like some semblance of excitement in the game is where
Yeah.
I'm at.
I had a talk with my buddy about this, and like we are so in socials, we see nothing but just dramatic freaking out all day, every day. And then we start the show and we're like, well, I've heard all the bad. Like, we don't need to go over the bad. Let's just talk about what's normal and what's maybe good, something to look forward to. But I realize not all of our listeners are like delving into X and Twitter and stuff like that. So, hopefully we can, represent the bad for you guys too going forward. It's something I would like to work on. But either way, you got what you got today. Matt, much thanks to Matt Baker for giving us something to talk about, give you guys some detail here. And before we go, Justin, let's check in with you. What's on the horizon for you? Perhaps a Gold Cup to cover in St. Louis?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I will be at the Gold Cup semifinal, whether that includes the U.S. men's national team or not. Yeah. And you can find that coverage. There's a STL magazine newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. And then I also cover every St. Louis game on my Substack, Talking Soccer. I also cover everything else U.S. soccer related. I try to touch on a women's soccer story and a men's soccer story every week outside of my St. Louis coverage. So.
That's rare, guys. Give Justin all your support. Justin, we're so lucky to have you. So thanks for doing this, man. Thanks to you, Stu. Again, thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the game. Bye-bye. Okay, we're out. We're still live. And this is where I realized I forgot to ask you guys if you wanted to do a wind down. I was kind of hoping we'd get everything in, and I just did not do a good enough job keeping us short.
Now we have transfer rumors to talk about.
I know, man. We have a transfer rumor. The salary thing is massive for this team, I think. So I don't know. Do you want to stick around? I think Matt would also love to just probably do a special episode on this or cover it on Fallout on Sunday. So it's up to you guys. We all have kids, right? So
yes.
So let's hold off. Let's wait for Matt, and then we'll invite you guys if you want to join us if we do a special episode, and you can decide for yourselves.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Have a good night, man. And we'll be seeing you around as always.
Sounds good. See y'all.
Bye.
See you.
See you, Stu. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the stream.